There are many reasons that a D&D adventure might fail. And one of the most common reasons that it fails is not because your players are bad and not because you're a bad DM. It's because of an invisible problem. I call it invisible because it's not necessarily there in the books or on D&D Beyond or whatever you're using in whatever RPG system that you prefer. And very few people talk about this problem, even though they really feel it, or rather I would say they feel the lack of it. And once this clicks with you, it will stay with you always. Hello everyone, I'm Esper, an RPG designer and writer, and I've been running this channel since 2009. So let's delve into this topic because it makes a huge difference in your games. You prepare sessions, you build campaign settings, you design adventures, you do quite a lot of things as a GM, and yet somehow the players lose focus. Moments of danger, they come and they go, and then in between, the game feels flat. And you start wondering, is it me? Probably not. The real problem is usually this: your game has no pressure. Now, this is not exactly difficulty, and it's not exactly complexity. Really, it's pressure. Pressure is what makes decisions matter. Without pressure, choices have little impact, and the pacing of the game stutters. It kind of starts and stops and swells and dies down. Victories are just these short-lived spikes in energy, when really what you want is flow. You want an ongoing energy to carry throughout the dungeon or the adventure or even the entire campaign of many adventures. Lots of people's D&D games remove pressure without realizing it. There are unlimited rests, there are predictable encounters, safety nets everywhere, no resource tracking, and time is one of the best and easiest resources to track. You just set a timer. And what is the result of inconsistent pressure on the characters? Or even worse, no pressure on the characters. It's a game where nothing is truly at stake, or if there are stakes, the players don't feel them. The stakes don't grip. Imagine Lord of the Rings, but there are no ring wraiths out hunting down Frodo in the One Ring, and orcs aren't going out and invading the realms of men, and Frodo isn't slowly being overwhelmed by the insidious ring. There are layers and layers of pressure in the Lord of the Rings. In the original script of Star Wars, the Death Star was not approaching the Rebel base on Yavin 4. It was just out there in space. And that made the X-Wing run lack sufficient pressure. So they changed that during the editing. You can tell if you pay attention to the cuts. You can tell that they did additional shooting later on and then patched that in. So the change was made and the scene became much stronger because now the rebels need to destroy the Death Star before it comes within range to obliterate their base. Old school D&D and OSR RPGs have a distinct quality to them: tension. Character resources matter more, mistakes cost more, you can't brute force everything. Now, maybe you're someone who prefers newer games and aren't really into the old school thing. That's totally fine. That's cool. You can still include plenty of pressure, which creates this tension that actually motivates and engages the players. So how do you do it? Well, there are a number of ways. I'll tell you a few right now. The first one is to limit recovery. This is probably the simplest thing that you could implement right away. Simply do not allow unlimited rests anytime, anywhere, or at least don't allow a lot of rests. The characters have to find some kind of secure location or a sanctuary in order to take a short or a long rest. Resting elsewhere simply doesn't work. The environment is too harsh or too irritating, or there are wandering monsters that attack, etc. In other words, rest is not free and healing is not guaranteed. Number 2, long rests do not provide a hit point refill. This is another very simple change. Just remove that video game style free hit point recharge just for sleeping one night. Let the characters have to actually spend their hit dice or use up their healing spells, or drink healing potions if they have them. This makes things a bit grittier, also a bit more realistic. So does the next solution, this is one that I like a lot. Dropping to 0 HP causes a level of exhaustion. Now, a complex, nitty-gritty injury system probably isn't a good fit for D&D, especially 5e. If you and your players do like it, by all means go for it, but it's not something that I would personally recommend for 5e, which is intended to be a smooth system. Instead, a rule that I use in my campaign setting is that characters suffer a level of exhaustion whenever they drop to 0 hit points. This is an easy to implement way to represent the characters sustaining injuries. Number 4, introduce consequences. The character's actions affect the situation around them, or even the world. Now, this requires the alteration of exactly 0 game rules. Really what it is a matter of GM mindset. So if the characters spend a long time talking or planning inside of a dungeon, or maybe they retreat out of the dungeon to rest and then they want to come back later at full strength, the consequence is that the dungeon reorganizes itself against the characters. Enemies fortify rooms with barricades and new traps. They band together instead of remaining in their separate encounter groups. They now set ambushes. The dungeon boss relocates or maybe prepares specifically for the party. This is different than, oh, you failed stealth. No, in this case, you just made the dungeon smarter. I have a series called Gauntlet Runner, which are hardcore dungeon trials for 5e. In Gauntlet Runner, I set a timer at the start of the dungeon, usually 3 to 5 hours, depends on the size of the dungeon, and I tell the players, when the timer goes off, the dungeon is going to get significantly deadlier. Things like additional monsters are unleashed and attack immediately wherever you are, even if you're already in the middle of a different combat encounter. Or maybe the boss gains more allies, or an additional set of deadly traps get turned on. And in the meantime, if the characters take a short rest, that knocks an hour off of the timer. But beyond just the dungeon scale, there can be consequences in the campaign at a regional scale or a world scale. If the characters take too long or ignore a developing threat, or they maybe complete a quest given by the wrong NPC, then the current world situation resolves badly. The town falls. The villain completes an objective. The political situation shifts for the worse. Or maybe a key ally gets persuaded over to the opponent's side. The world is not waiting around for the player's convenience. It is active. There is a sense of this dynamic fantasy world that is alive on its own. The world doesn't revolve around the characters. This last tip has essentially 2 sides to it, and you have to balance them. They kind of play off of each other. It is to create uncertainty, but don't hide everything from the players. So some kinds of uncertainty are great. Unique monsters where the players don't really know what they are or what they might do. Mysteries, incomplete information, unreliable NPCs, strange magic items with unpredictable effects or curses on them. These sorts of things are great. However, I've seen way too many adventures in which the GM just hides everything. The characters essentially are just bumbling through a fun park, haunted house, where hidden monsters pop out roar in every room. Or anything that the players ask about, the GM responds with, give me this skill check or that skill check. Instead, I recommend to give the players as much information as you can. Now, you don't want to just completely info dump on them, but give them as much relevant information as you possibly can for their current situation. Again, some things you do want to hide. You don't want to spoil the adventure or give away the solution too easily, but things usually become more interesting, more tactical. There are more decisions to make when the players have information to go off of. If they don't really have any info to go off of, then it's very difficult for them to make any decisions, and they might not even understand what's at stake or why they should care. So here's an example from one of my gauntlets. This illustrates how to give the players enough information to go off of while also introducing pressure. To your left is a corridor with spears stabbing in and out of the walls. To your right is a locked door, but there's a viewing slot, and you see bursts of flame from the other side. At the start of the 4th round, A pack of armored pit hounds are going to be unleashed upon you. What do you do? So there's a clear choice to be made, and there are these two apparent options with some information that the players can use to decide which way they want to go, or maybe they want to get clever and try to find some third solution of their own. Again, some things can be hidden. That's good. Just don't go overboard on it. Players need meaningful risk, but they also need to know the meaning of the risks. So there are lots of ways to increase the pressure on the characters. And I highly recommend that you try out a couple of the suggestions that I've given here, or you can even use them all of them all at once. Watch how the players become more engaged, more energetic, more excited by your sessions. I'm particularly excited and interested about this sort of RPG design because I've been exploring it so much for the past several months as I've been working on Gauntlet Runner. I've been exploring this hardcore dungeon design, and actually I found that 5e is a fantastic system for it because the characters are so strong, they can endure so much and really get pushed to the limits. And by the way, Gauntlet Runner, the book/PDF, is currently on pre-order. It's really far into development. You can find the link in the video description and the pinned comment down below if you would like to check it out for yourself. So when it comes to putting pressure on the characters, the goal really isn't we want to kill the characters. The goal is we want to create this space where decisions matter, where mistakes have weight, where victories are earned, where the fictional world feels alive and the players are engaged. When you add pressure into the game, things do change with the players. They lean forward, they think harder, they pay attention a lot more, they care a lot more. The game just comes to life more. So I really hope you get to experience this. It's such a thrilling way to undertake adventures. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope to see you again in another video sometime soon. May your adventures be many.